everyone. Welcome to Northpointe Plus. This is episode 143. So I'd like to say that we're experts at this by now, but no. I just told Andy I still get nervous sometimes when I'm doing this. So with me, I have Andy. Andy got to speak on Sunday, and so Andy, actually, you're the student minister here, and it was also graduation, or like we're celebrating the graduates too.
Yep, we got to celebrate them. Your sister
Yeah.
graduated.
Yep.
It was actually a lot of fun reading off names from up front because I kind of get a sense where everyone sits, and then I look over and I'm like, oh, they're there, cool, and then oh, they're not there, but hey, all right, we'll still celebrate them. And
yeah, that was funny.
And normally your family, I feel like, goes to first service.
They do.
And so this past week, I looked over where they normally sit, and they weren't there. And I go, man, I was really hoping Bella was going to be here.
Yep.
And then they were here second service.
Yep, just pulling a fast one on you, that's all. That was funny, though.
Keeping it real.
I know, you made a comment. You were like, I kind of know where everybody sits, because you were looking, and then everybody in the section was like, where should we be looking?
Yeah.
But that was funny. So how many, do you remember how many there were? 8?
Yeah, I think we had 8 that were recognized yesterday, and then there were a couple others that have been a part of student ministry in the past and just never submitted anything.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so.
Is that hard for you to see kids leave, or is it more of just like an exciting thing? You're just down for the celebration?
You know, I'm actually super excited when students leave because I think we've had time here that we can invest into our students. So we've had, if I've only been here 4 years, but as Northpointe, if they've been coming since birth, that's 18 years of their life that they've been invested into by Northpointe. And to see them go out into the world, and something about this like upcoming few generations, I've seen more than others, where they just seem like on fire and they have like this passion. And I want to see how God's going to use that in the world. And I don't want to keep them around here. If they choose to stay in DeWitt, cool, but they're going to be doing amazing things here. And if they decide to move away to Kalamazoo or Grand Rapids or Detroit, they're going to take awesome things with them there.
Yeah,
so
it's
I'm
cool.
super excited to see where these students go.
Yeah, it's cool that you get to see kids like that because not everybody does. Like, not everybody gets to have those conversations with kids. Like, I just know, like, either with my sister or myself when I was younger, like, I wasn't really talking to my parents about this stuff. But somebody like you get to talk to them about it, and, like, that's kind of a cool perspective.
And the fun thing, too, is this is kind of like half their story. Like, they've been in education their whole life. And this might be the first opportunity where maybe they're going into education, but they're being away from parents, or they're entering a workforce trade, whatever, going into the military. There's all these different opportunities of where these students are going to go, and you get to see how it plays out. So you're kind of getting to see the end, not even the end of their story, but this continuation.
Oh, yeah, because now they're little adults. They're little humans finally. Like, they get a big kid job, and that is fun to see. It's weird, though. Like, Bella, she's the youngest
of your sisters.
It's weird. Like, I still see her like she's a 10-year-old or like, some little kid, and now she's going off to college. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. But so now that you've been here for 4 years, so they were freshmen when you first.
Yep.
That's kind of cool. So that's your first high school rotation.
Yeah, the first high school class is coming out.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I mentioned it to my Becca, my wife, and I said, this is really cool because it's the first class that I get to see graduate, like the class that I was hired into graduate. So it's been a lot of fun. Great students working with them.
Yeah, that is cool. But now we kind of took you out of your main scenery on Sunday, and you were up actually talking to all the big kids at the Big Kid Church. So do you want to give us just a quick preview or, I guess, recap of what your message was?
Yeah, so we've been in this, and we've been talking about kind of his characteristic, his traits that he's been having. And we've seen him be super faithful over the past 2 weeks with the drought, prophesying about the drought, and doing all that, and then the head-to-head against the prophets of Baal at Mount Carmel. We see him tell or show God through the burning of the altar, and this is the first week where it's kind of the wildness of the story.
Yeah.
Like, he's had these huge successes, these huge victories, and all of a sudden he's met with defeat. He's depressed, he's anxious, he's overwhelmed by life because he was threatened by Jezebel. And so, and that's kind of what's interesting about how this lines up with graduation is sometimes after these huge successes we have, we end up having low moments. And I think personally for me, that's what I've experienced in my life. And even after college or going to college after graduating high school, that was a low moment because you're in this time of transition, of worry, of anxiety, of fear. And even coming into new roles after graduating college and coming to Northpointe, there was a lot of fear and anxiety in that as well. And so it's just taking recognition of that and seeing how Elijah faced that. So
yeah, and I think it's such a good story to bring up because it's so relatable. Like I think you had mentioned before we started, a lot of people said like, that was so good. Like that was such a great message. I think it is because it's just so relatable. Like all of us have been there at one point or another.
Yeah.
When I did the share your story for Northpointe, it was when I was graduating college and I was like, now what do I do? Like I've only ever known school in sports too my whole life. And now it's like, okay, like now I actually have to like make kind of big life-changing decisions.
Yeah.
So I feel like very similar to what you said, like when you went to college. Like it's kind of just a new scary experience. And it was funny. We were talking again before we started that I also knew this as the eat a snack, take a nap passage. And I just think that that's so funny. And you almost didn't say it until like the very end. So I thought you weren't going to.
Got to keep you on your toes.
I know. I was like, Andy, you have to. Like, I feel like this is how so many people know it. But maybe not. Maybe that's, I don't know. But yeah, so transition and change can be scary. And we did have a question submitted. So this question is, how do you know when it's time to rest and refuel for yourself in today's world?
Yeah. So that's a really heavy question.
It is. Because there's lots of answers, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of answers. And there's lots of ways that this question could be taken, whether it be for you personally, whether it be for your family, whether it be, I mean, for like your friendships. There's different breaks that you need to take. And ultimately, what I think it comes down to is being able to find a time of Sabbath. And it's a Jewish custom is to have a Sabbath day. You work 6 days, you take the 7th day off, and that's just for rest and recharge and nourishment. And there's so many different viewpoints on how people view the Sabbath and what you can and can't do. And ultimately, what I would say is don't do anything that you would consider work. So if I wouldn't probably want to do yard work on my Sabbath day, even though it's like one of my weekend days. It's one of the days that I have off. I wouldn't want to do yard work on it. But you do things that you would find refreshing. You can I love going out and going on coffee dates with my wife, and we just spend that time talking, and it's really refreshing. And it's just making sure that what you're doing is recharging you. So, and now that I've kind of got in this habit of Sabbath, well, first of all, sometimes my Sabbath isn't even on the same day of the week. Sometimes it's on Mondays, sometimes it's on Saturdays. It just kind of depends on what's going on. Like,
which we've talked about that a lot in church too. Like it doesn't have to be Sunday. It doesn't have to be your Sabbath day.
I mean, we're working on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I don't consider Sunday my Sabbath. And while I do get to worship and I get to experience God at Northpointe on Sunday morning, my mind doesn't stop working necessarily. So there's always like, who am I going to talk to after service? Who do I need to reach out to this week? And my mind doesn't necessarily turn off, and it's not as refreshing as it might be for other people. So I don't consider that a part of my Sabbath. But yeah, it's finding the time that works for you. And maybe it's a Wednesday. I mean, you start Wednesday night and then end Thursday afternoon or evening, and it's just figuring out that time that works for you. But yeah, anything that kind of refreshes and recharges you. And out of having this kind of established Sabbath that I've had for the past couple of years now, I recognize when I don't have my Sabbath day.
You can feel it.
I feel it. I feel anxious, overwhelmed, overworked, and it's draining. I mean, that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Is you feel tired. You don't feel refreshed, and you're not ready to do what you need to do in order to get it done. You're not ready to go back to work. And so it's really finding what works for you and then what recharges you as well. So,
yeah, I think just a good way to summarize everything that we've said is so recognizing when it's time.
yeah.
You're feeling burnt out and I feel like some people it's easy to recognize it when you've kind of gone too far.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, well now like I'm burnt out, like I'm just done. Where it's like you kind of need to realize leading up to that, like, okay, starting to feel a little bit whatever.
That is definitely the easiest time to realize when you need to refresh and recharge.
Is when you're already
when you're already at the end.
You've already lost it. But so just realizing when it's time and then finding time, like this is the day that I'm going to set aside and just use it. And then finding what works for you in that day.
Yeah.
Of just because it's different for everybody. Like you know, I think you said yard work. Like, okay, I'm not going to do yard work because that's work. And my husband Jacob's the same way. But I know some people like love to garden and like really like to recharge. Like and like they're just sit. But for me, that would kind of seem like work.
Yeah, and for some people, planting flowers, that would be lovely. I mean, not my thing personally,
right?
But the other thing that we had a really great conversation about this at our life group this past week. And what was brought up is culture values this like work ethic, this drive that people have. They always want you to be available, to be on.
Yep.
But that's not healthy.
Yeah.
And so part of it is setting clear boundaries of what you're able to do, what you're not able to do. And in our life group, one of the people, they were talking about how they kept pushing their body, and eventually their knee gave out. And almost then it's like this Sabbath that you need to now take.
Yeah, forced.
And you don't want to get to that point. And I think the same thing is there in the story of Elijah, is where he was just so depressed, so overwhelmed, so
but it's
worn
hard
out.
when you're doing a good thing.
Yeah.
Like you're doing a thing, you're working hard for it. You don't want to give up and you don't want to stop, but sometimes you need to.
And I'm sure he had Sabbaths in there.
Yeah.
But to be running from God and not taking the time to listen isn't going to recharge him anymore. Right. And I think that is what wears him out so much in this passage. So, and that comes back to the other thing is when you're in your Sabbath and on your day-to-day life, be listening for God. Be listening for what he has in store for you. And I think he can also tell you like, hey, you need to take a break right now. And if we're not willing to listen to that, we're going to keep pushing through. So,
and it's funny that you kind of brought it up that way where like your body will give out too on you. Sometimes that's how it works. But I was on the Kenya team, which we'll talk more about that like later, I'm sure. But while we were on that trip, it was funny because we were working in a medical clinic, and they wanted to take it's very like English influence. So they wanted like a tea break. And we were like, oh, like we don't need a break. And they're like, no, we're breaking. And we're like, we don't need a break. Like we've only been doing this for a couple hours. Like let's keep pushing. And so that was kind of a funny cultural moment to be like, why are we stopping? We don't need to stop. And but then too, we had some people on our trip get sick. And I'm very thankful that Jacob, my husband, got sick just one day, and then he was fine. But he even said like, I think I can push it and be okay. But I know that if I do push it, my body might I might continue to be sick, and I don't want to be sick for more days. So like you kind of just have to know when like my body might give out on me. And I even said too, like since we've gotten back, because it's like a full letdown of like, okay, we're back home. You're not rushing to do things anymore. You're not rushing to go see new things. I'm like, oh, it feels like the tired just hit so much harder where I'm like, I really do need to just lay around and do nothing when you don't want to. I want to go see family and friends and everything, but it's just kind of hard.
And another thing, I mean, is recognizing not to push yourself even in the day-to-day. So I just read a book a couple probably 2 months ago now. It's called A Minute to Think by Juliet Funt. And this whole book is this idea of being the most productive that you can. And in order to do so, you have to take breaks. So if you have a 10 o'clock meeting, an 11 o'clock meeting, and a 12 o'clock meeting, and you go from meeting to meeting to meeting, especially by that 12 o'clock meeting, you are going to be worn out. And if you were to take 10 minutes and just reflect on the past meeting and recharge and then prepare yourself for the 11 o'clock meeting, having that buffer zone allows you to reacclimate, not keep just pushing. And I think that's huge, is taking those moments just to pause in your day. It doesn't have to be...
a brain break.
Yeah, it doesn't...
That's what I call it anyway. I'm like, I'm going to go take a walk outside really quick.
I don't know if you knew this, but on Windows 11, I just switched over my computer. I got Windows 11. It has a focus tool. And the way it works is you say how long you want to work, how many breaks you want, and then it suggests how many breaks you want to take.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's like, hey, here's your 20-minute time to work. Now take a 5-minute break. Here's your 20 minutes to work. Take a 5-minute break. And I found myself being way more productive. Instead of working for an hour.
Which is funny because you wouldn't think that.
No.
Like, because you're stopping your flow.
And by the end of it, if I'm doing it for 4 hours and I take a half-hour break overall, that seems like a huge waste. But if I work for 4 hours and then take my break, then I'm just like burnt out. And by the 3-4 hour mark, I'm just like, I can be done now.
Yeah.
Or there's moments where I'm like, I'm not ready to stop.
Yeah.
But it keeps pushing me because I never get to that point of exhaustion.
Yeah.
And
that's what's key, I think.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get to that point. That's the burnout point.
Yeah. You don't want to get to the point of burnout. You don't want to get to the point where you're already feeling just like so weighed down by what you're doing.
Right.
So I think that's the other piece of advice I'd offer to that question is don't wait till it's too late. And I think a lot of people, especially in the culture we live in, that's where we get to, where we wait until everything is chaotic, where we have to stop.
Yeah,
not when it's able to stop.
Right. This is a lot of like listening to your body and like, because you know.
You do.
And maybe, I guess that's speaking for me. Like, I know when I'm getting to a point where I'm getting frustrated more easily.
Yeah.
I'm getting maybe like a little quick to anger. Or like, I can just tell when I'm like, okay, I've had it. Or like my fuse is shorter.
And maybe that's what you need to do is if you don't know your body's signals and you ask the people around you, you're like, hey, how do you notice when I'm starting to get overwhelmed? Well, now that you're overwhelmed.
That's true. Yeah. Somebody close to you will know.
You're getting snappy. You're getting frustrated. You're really irritable.
Yeah.
You're just zoning off into space.
Yeah, maybe you shut down.
Maybe you just kind of shut down. And if you don't know your signals, maybe that's it, is you have to ask your spouse or coworker or someone that you spend time with that knows you well enough in order to speak into that. That's a
good extra like step to add in there, is to like know your own body's cues. And if not, ask somebody. And then, I guess realizing, oh, okay, I need a break. Finding a day for the break, figuring out what is going to reset, recharge, make you feel better, because it is just so important. And especially when you have other people in your lives, spouse, children, family that you're close with. Nobody likes to see, or coworkers, nobody likes to see you stressed out. Nobody wants you to be stressed out. They just want to be there for you. And sometimes like your emotions can affect other people. And so this is it. I mean, it was only one question, but there is a lot that goes into that.
I was going to say, I'm not even done yet.
No,
so
keep going.
I was going to say one more thing on this idea is that if you are starting to develop this idea of Sabbath and this idea of rest, don't give up on it.
Yeah.
Because like any other habit, like working out or eating right or you name the habit, it's going to take time and it's going to take effort and it's going to be trial and error. And you're going to realize maybe that's not as refreshing as I thought it was. Like I love mowing the lawn. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but that's still work.
Yep.
And I don't want to do that on my Sabbath because I know it's not going to refresh and recharge me. even though I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to refresh and recharge me. So maybe it's going to be taking those moments and saying, hey, I really like this, but I can't do that. That can't be a part of my Sabbath. And then you might develop new hobbies. You might develop new skills that are ultimately what you end up doing on your Sabbath, because you just keep trying different things. And it's not like a one size fits all. And that's what's really funny about life, is a lot of people look for like that one answer.
Yeah, one
And
fix.
it's very rare that any fix is going to be so black and white across the board. So take the time, work on it, don't give up, be persistent, and ultimately when you're able to get in that route, it'll help out a ton.
Yeah, I think so. And help you out, help out people around you.
Yeah.
Just life in general. Just life advice from, how old are you? 26? You're 26, aren't you? And I'm 25.
Yeah.
We got it all figured out if you haven't, if that's what you have gathered.
Absolutely not. I mean,
No, I know.
I we only have like 51 years of experience between the two of us.
Right.
And
No.
but I mean,
Those are just our experiences,
these are just our experiences. And that's what
we've noticed it.
Yeah.
We've seen other people go through it, so it's you can pick it out.
Go to the Bible, study what Sabbath is and what it looks like.
Long story short, make sure when you start feeling cranky, have a snack and take a nap.
There we go.
That is all that we're learning. Do you have anything else to add?
Nah,
Not really.
I think that's all I got.
Yeah. No, I think this is kind of a fun passage, and like I said, very relevant and relatable. So, well, thanks for speaking with us.
Yeah, no problem.
Going over that, and make sure you like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and then we'll see you on Sunday.